Hello Struckpup, this is one of the two builds I'll be uploading today. It's a mage build and it centers around Breath of Fire and bonuses while static, which means while we're using Breath of Fire we're benefiting from those bonuses. It of course uses Step Between Worlds for extra mobility. It uses Etheric Vortex for some extra damage to enemies in the dome. It uses Blinding Light Heroic from the Morvael's Impetuous 1 set. And it also uses Etheric Blaster, which is kind of optional for the build. As you can see, this is Chaos 5 footage. It's pretty easy to kill some elites with it, even the boss fights don't seem that difficult if you're careful with their skills. You can also dish out massive amounts of damage with Etheric Blast if you use it carefully. I've seen crits such as 17 million, 18 million, even 20 something million with Etheric Blast, so keep that in mind. Our skills kind of benefit each other. Cooldown skills can give us energy, and energy cost skills can give us cooldown reduction. So if this sounds like your kind of playstyle on a mage, then this is the video for you guys and gals. The gear for this set includes the Impetuous 1 item set, also known as the Morvael set, which I would strongly suggest going for cooldown reduction on the helmet, cooldown reduction and crit chance if possible on the offhand. As you can see, I kind of don't have crit chance on my offhand, so you might want to get something like that. You would also need crit chance and cooldown reduction on the weapon, and ideally you would have crit chance and cooldown reduction on the accessories. This is not the best accessory, I'm just using whatever I've got with good rolls at the moment. So besides this set you do need a Soulfire. It's a great weapon for any build that includes burning, regardless whether it's a mixed magic fire or a fire build. Even a purely magical damage build could combine this with a Phoenix Hero, as seen in my other mage build. The weapon I decided to use here is Relentless Sentinel. We are burning the enemies regardless with this skill and this skill, even with this skill. And there's an option to burn them with this if it's upgraded, or with this if it's upgraded. And this also can burn them, but you can remove it, it's kind of optional. I'll show you later in the skill section. So I think this is not bad, because we are kind of staying still while using Breath of Fire, and this does give us a bit of damage reduction and critical hit chance and some extra damage. Of course it's not good enough, this build is not good enough for Chaos 7, so even that damage reduction that we're stacking might be nice, but it won't help you on Chaos 7 where almost everything can one-shot you. For the bracers I would strongly suggest something that is decently rolled, like this one. See, I have a green one, but do you see it's 10.5% less attack, because this one doesn't give a flat attack. Even though it gives me 16,744 health, I decided to go with this one that gives me 3,672 damage. It does give a little crit damage. This is a legacy item, by the way, it seems. Due to the... oh, maybe it's not legacy, because it does give a lot of counter attack damage. So it's not legacy, it's just a low roll on the crit damage compared to this one that is 41. So as I would say, try to prioritize flat damage over crit damage. If you need health, go for something with health and flat damage if you can find, but something like this maybe. But I would strongly suggest avoiding something that doesn't give flat damage, even if it's green. Unless you really need the HP, then you can kind of sacrifice that damage. The amulet that you need to take ideally would be Amulet of Purifying Flame, because hitting an enemy has a chance to reduce the current cooldown and grant energy. This means you would be able to use those two skills more often, and even this skill. For Aether Blast, as I said, it's optional, so maybe you wouldn't be having something with cooldown here, you might have something else. I will explain what might be well later. Blinding Light is great, and the cooldown could be 5 seconds if we don't take those two nodes. With the way I've got it at the moment. Maybe you might have more cooldown reduction in your gear, So you might have it even as 4 seconds. This was 3 seconds, but when I got that extra minus 5% cooldown reduction, it was 4 seconds. But we do get some cooldown reduction from other sources other than the gear that are not shown at the moment, so they're kind of procced. So keep that in mind. But the amulet I would strongly suggest to go for would be this one. This is an alternative option, at least if you're using a god skill like Aether Blast or like Magical Etheric Storm, which could be taken if we don't take this node and even this maybe. With the energy we kind of sorted things out with some skills which you'll see later. So for the boots, just take HP, pretty standard. For the Morvael Trouser, just take whatever gives you more HP and energy, same here and same here. But this can give you also cost reduction, so try to get that extra cost reduction squeezed out of the armor. And as for the rings, my ideal choice would be Ring of Hotek to keep getting extra energy when critting. We are critting a lot. We have some flat crit damage, but then we have extra crit for enemies that are burning. Then we get some crit from this thing, and we also get crit while standing static like this thing. So there's a lot of crits, even this one, which can actually be removed later on if you need something else when farming. So this kind of sums it up, I think, for the gear. Oh, and the Ring of Resonance. Old Ring of Resonance is very nice. You might really want to keep using this to stun enemies that get really close. So when you use Blinding Light, it will immediately stun anyone close enough, and on top of that it repels them. And when you teleport, when you fall down next to the enemies, it will stun them. When you do this skill, it also stuns, so keep that in mind. Old Ring of Resonance, as well as this skill, a Duelist chain reaction you can get from invasions. Oh wait, I think I need to go to rank 2. Wait, it didn't save my progress. What the? Come on, it didn't, and it's glitched. Look at that, it's showing something that's not my actual progress. I had those notes here taken, and I had those notes here taken. It didn't save it. This is total bullshit. Something's been happening today after I walked in. This doesn't get saved. So it shows me some weird progress regardless of what rank I go to. You can see even if I go to rank 19 it will be showing me this, and I haven't done a single note in rank 19. So ignore this progress here. It should look something like this, but it also should have this one here. It's just kind of showing the wrong one. I don't know why it's glitched like this, regardless of what I go to. But take those two rewards if you're having difficulties with taking Duelist chain reaction. So I would suggest maybe going all the way to here, and if this is if you can do this, go all the way to here. But whenever you hit a wall, you would need those two nodes at least. If you don't want to do those two, grab those two. If you're really having difficulties, then grab those two first, then grab those two, and then move on to getting a Duelist chain reaction. But we do need Duelist chain reaction. And for Old Ring of Resonance, I would strongly suggest getting the 4 corruption nodes. You might be able with green gear to do it with 2 corruption nodes, but just make sure that you have a lot of HP. But I strongly suggest getting all 4 corruption nodes, then getting anything else like reducing the enemy's damage or reducing the enemy's HP. Anything of those support nodes would help you. And I'm not sure what's happening with the saves, keeping resetting my progress, but not much that I can do about this. Resonance is all the way down here. You might try and experiment with Old Ring of Dexterity or Ring of Shadow, but I don't think they're worth it for this build. I can show you. So Old Ring of Dexterity gives you a bit of more damage from your skills that generate energy. This kind of generates energy, so maybe it will benefit. Let's just test it. It doesn't show on the skill section, but maybe it would deal more damage. Another skill that generates energy would be what was it? This one. So all those 3 skills can generate energy. They're basic skills, so all of them generate energy. Something without a Ring of Resonance. Before you get Ring of Resonance, I would strongly suggest going for something like Ring of Radiance. Performing critical hits has a chance to reduce any current cooldowns. Ideally, if I'm using something that is not the amulet of purifying flame, I would be using Ring of Radiance, but I didn't have good rolls of either. Not Ring of Radiance, not even Amulet of Purifying Flame had good rolls enough for me to justify using it over whatever I'm using at the moment. But keep that in mind, you need either this or this to get your cooldowns reduced eventually, either by hitting an enemy or by performing critical hits. If you use both, that's gonna be nice. Something worth mentioning is this is not bad, it gives you extra damage bonus. So if it's a kind of an easier difficulty, you can just focus on the damage and not on the health and energy regain or the cooldown reduction. This I wouldn't suggest even on higher difficulties. This extra damage reduction doesn't seem to help much. And this is good. Phoenix Amulet is good only if you're using something like those skills. So if you're using any of those, you would kind of need an amulet that reduces the cooldown of the potion, so you can kind of spam those. Make sure to kind of use Ring of Hotek and maybe Ring of Radiance if you can before you get in Ring of Resonance, but then get Ring of Resonance. It is really nice. Now let me show you some of the skills and god skills. The skills for this build, as you've seen, are Action Missile, Etheric Vortex Superior. This is optional, you can put anything, you have 12 points, so go out, either put Firewall if you like playing with it. I really don't like the animation, it's kind of too big. This is also a nice option. You can try experimenting with Tornadoes or even with Etheric Orb, especially if it gets fixed and this actually starts pulling the enemies towards the projectile. You can either remove this and take something that doesn't cost many points, like a basic 5-point skill, then you can upgrade Taxi Missile, or even you can try and get rid of this 25% damage taken to enemies within this skill and take the one that burns the enemies, this one. That would mean you would have more chance of getting the enemies burnt, but I would still suggest using Etheric Vortex Superior. Then Step Between Worlds Mastered. I only took it because I had some spare skill points, but you can actually use the most basic one. If you need skill points to get something that upgrades this skill or something that's like a upgraded version, like as I said, you might want to take Etheric Storm Mastered and you would need extra 6 skill points. So a great way to get those skill points is downgrading Step Between Worlds to the most basic version. We do need Breath of Fire Mastered. It's our one of the most damage dealing skills for this build. Of course, this deals a lot of damage, but the cooldown is too big and it's not kind of worth considering it the biggest source of damage. But those two skills, Blinding Light and Breath of Fire, are our biggest sources of damage. So make sure to use this as mastered, and this is our heroic. There's no point not to use it, it costs 0 points. As I said, Duelist Chain Reaction is needed. Blessed Talisman you can remove, we kind of have a lot of crit chance even as it is. So that's excluding the extra crit chance for each burning enemy, which I think can stack up to 10 times or maybe 20, I'm not sure exactly how many stacks, but it's at least 10 times, so that means at least extra 5 crit. So I can actually afford removing this and maybe putting something else there. And if I need skill points, I can always down mode this one as I said, so I can do something like this. And then I can remove this extra crit chance, and I can either take something like Veteran's Chain Reaction, or I can even take a passive skill such as Fortress of Willpower for extra damage reduction. Maybe even something like this is not worth it, we are not doing magical damage. I think this does some magical damage, but it's still fire. You can try experimenting with Arcane Secrets to see if it boosts Blinding Light Heroic. But something that I would strongly suggest might be, if this is considered magical damage, this would be good. But alternatively, maybe something like this won't be bad if you are using this and know how to get it to work properly to hit the enemies. So we're using concentration, we're using Quay Shield, we're using Action Mastery. So what's left is one of those three skills. So you can either pick one of them. Don't pick this one because I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. Might be nice, but we are regaining energy from this and from this and from our ring. But you can kind of experiment, see if there's anything else that you like for the build that you can put there. Have it in mind that with green gear you would have a lot of crit chance, so this may not be needed, or you can even just put something like this without demoting this skill. So you can kind of return it to this state and then just put something for extra damage, or this for extra farming, this when farming, blessings, even this for extra energy if you need it, but I don't think you need it. This for extra healing. Anything's possible, whatever you need. If you need HP, go for HP. But I decided to just leave it so we can crit even more often. So this kind of sums up the skills. Let's show you some of the god skills I've decided to get. I decided to go all the way here for that extra HP, even though it cost me some cost reduction. I think with the way the build is, as you've seen in the video, I can afford this with my skills, my passives. Because of Master of Equilibrium Superior, consuming energy has a chance to reduce any current cooldowns. Using a spell with cooldown has a chance to regenerate energy. So this is pretty nice because we're kind of regening energy when we're using this. So we're using this to lose energy. But when we teleport or use Blinding Light or even use this skill, we are kind of regenerating energy. Sadly, the Etheric, the Breath of Fire, not Breath of Fire, but Etheric Blast doesn't kind of count as a skill with cooldown because it's a god skill with cooldown. But even with that, you still have 3 different sources of skills with cooldown that can generate energy. And while you're using Breath of Fire, you kind of have a chance to reduce the cooldowns of the other skills, which is pretty nice. And you can see we do have enough cost reduction to keep spamming this for quite some time. Just look at that, how much uptime we have on this skill. I don't think we are losing much. We are not losing much by taking this cost reduction, and this is probably useless. Probably you don't need that. I'd rather take that extra cooldown reduction. So if I were to suggest, don't take this note and just maybe take this damage and take some more damage, or just I wouldn't suggest grabbing extra energy, but you can do something like that. Remove those two and grab this energy, or grab this energy. Do whatever you think is best for those 2 points. Just keep that in mind. I was experimenting. I wouldn't suggest taking this because 10 HP is not worth it. 10% HP is not worth it. 20% crit damage. So this is the god skills. In the end of the video you would see a bit more gameplay, boss fight, killing, and that would kind of be it. So you can kind of see how nice it is to use this build on big groups of enemies with all the AoEs. You kind of jump in, pop in the Etheric Vortex to make them take more damage. Start with a Blinding Light under their feet. Move the Etheric Vortex if needed. Spam an Etheric Blast if you want, and you can also move it if needed to go closer to the enemy for massive damage. And just keep using Breath of Fire the rest of the time. Blinking also gives some damage, so it could be used to damage enemies, and it could also be used to stun enemies upon entering the other side of the portal. And this is the boss fight. As you can see, you can kind of port in immediately, put the dome up, put the blinding light to get those sticks, start burning him, keep dodging away from the poison fields he's making. Use Etheric Blast for some extra damage on him, and just keep moving around and repeating what you've done. Not too difficult. If you keep it up, most bosses should be child's play, as long as you avoid their skills. Thank you for watching this video, folks. If you've liked it, you can let me know by hitting that button. I would also appreciate any subscribes, that would help me grow my channel substantially. Also, if you do think this build could be made better or there's anything more to it that maybe I'm not seeing, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I would appreciate hearing from you guys. You can see links to my Mixer, Twitter, Twitch and Facebook pages on the upcoming sequence. And remember to just keep it cool, guys, and until next time. Goodbye.